No, he doesn't. They both approached the bank slowly. Garvey moved with the practiced plod of a harassed policeman, already resigned to face the terrible day. A uniform scurried up to match his pace, and Garvey nodded absently as he rattled off a few facts and details about the sight ahead, none of which amounted to anything. The uniform waited expectantly, hoping for some commendation or at least acknowledgement from the big detective, but Garvey's face betrayed nothing. He just sniffed and put his hands in his pockets as though enjoying any pleasant stroll. Crestfallen, the uniform departed, and Hayes resumed his place at Garvey's side. The other officers watched him curiously. He was short and wispy and overdressed, and seemed queerly aristocratic with his long blonde hair and expensive coat, which was several sizes too large for him. And whereas Garvey made a straight, slow trudge to the river, Hayes wound and wove aimlessly, distracted by odd things found on the ground, or perhaps lost in his own thoughts. To anyone's eyes, the two of them seemed no more right for each other than they were for the neighborhood. Yet when Hayes asked for a cigarette, Garvey fished a tin from his pocket with his thick boxer's hands and lifted one out without a word. Hayes took it, murmuring a thanks through a small smile, and then passed his free hand over the cigarette in a quick flourish. It vanished, his fingers left holding nothing at all. With another flourish, it had returned again, and Hayes planted it in his mouth, smiling cleverly. Garvey barely seemed to notice. His eyes stayed fixed on the river in the mist. Hayes sighed and stuffed himself farther into his coat and continued on. Finally, they came to the water's edge and looked. Had it not been for the hands, you could never have told what it was. Face down in the water, it looked like some floating pile of rags, wet white towels twisted up and drifting alone. But the hands were visible down in the waters below, ghostly white and perfect, gesturing this way and that as they were buffeted by the currents. It looked like he was conducting some underwater orchestra, a soiled water nymph toiling through the runoff. Hayes watched the officers struggle with the thing in the water, tugging it ever closer. "And he's a company man, I assume?" he said. "Don't know," said Garvey. "What? You don't?" "No. That's why I called you." "You called me down here at 7 in the morning on a body that might not even be one of mine?" said Hayes. "Good God, Garvey. I won't forgive you for that. I won't. I simply can't." One of the uniforms reached out with a hooked cane and caught him on his side and pulled him close. They gathered around the bank with sticks and nets, and Garvey helped them ease the dripping wreck ashore. Hayes watched as they hauled him out and half sang to himself, "Here comes another stray from my accursed flock, perhaps. My wandering lambs, my lost little babes. Where did you run to, little lamb? What trouble did you get yourself mixed up in? And to where can I lead you next?" "Jesus Christ," said Garvey. He shook his head at Hayes, disgusted. Once they had the bodies steady, they laid him out on the ground. His face was waterlogged and almost formless, his eyes little swollen slits, and his lips dumbly twisted. A ragged gash ran zigzag from one corner of his jaw to the top of the opposite collarbone. The injury was colorless, the flesh like custard or curd. No fish had been at him, for no fish would live in the construct canals. "One of yours?" asked Garvey. Hayes peered at him. "I can't say." Garvey sighed and leaned on one of the nets. "Not familiar? Nothing?" "No, I'm afraid not, Garv. McNaughton pays me for a great deal of things, but they don't pay me to keep a mental registry of every factory groundling they have." He coughed. "Anything in his pockets?" Garvey reached in, fumbled around, then pulled his hands out and dried them off. "No." "So just a man in his skivvies and an undershirt, working part-time as a buoy?" "Seems like it." "Well,